Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. And I hope you enjoy this new show, whether you're viewing it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the episode. I do want to thank you for being part of my audience. You can also find links to videos or podcasts on miamighostchronicles.com, as well as where you can submit your story about any eerie experiences you've had, which I would love to hear about. Just go to the Submit Your Story tab. Please subscribe to our channel so that you receive notification of when we release a new show. And find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is where I usually live stream and where I give you a behind-the-scenes look at locations where new episodes are being filmed at. I also tell you about all the interesting guests that will be appearing soon on Stories of the Supernatural. I hope you enjoy the show, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi everybody, it's Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. How is everybody doing today? I'm doing good. I'm doing fantastic. And by the way, since I know everybody always asks about it, the reason why you might hear some chirping is that I've got a new addition to my bird family over here. You can't see him, but I've got an albino cockatiel. And you know how I am about my animals. So if you hear like a weird in the background right there, she or he, because I'm not sure what it is trying to talk to me. So it's not, you're not hearing things. It's not an EVP of a bird. It's a real one. But anyway, let me tell you about not one, but the two guests that I have with me today. And the first one is a gentleman by the name of William J. Hall. Now, William is the author of the paranormal bestseller, The World's Most Haunted House, The True Story of the Bridgeport Poltergeist on Lindley Street, and The Haunted House Diaries. And he just had a book, just came out now in September, called Haunted Messages. Okay, and now he is a performing magician, a 25-year performing magician, so he is equipped to recognize trickery and to create illusions. He's also an experienced researcher of the unexplained, from folklore and urban legend to fortune-telling, the pyramids, and other mysterious tales. Now, I also have with us Jimmy Petonito, which he's co-authored books with, and already Jimmy had experiences in childhood, and of course, like a lot of the guests that I have here, this, instead of scaring him away, created a fascination with the unexplained. And in 1991, he began attending classes with Ed and Lorraine Warren, became a part of NESPR as a psychic photographer, and he's also known as Mr. Haunted. He really is, by the way. He's been investigating the unexplained for over 30 years. He's investigated hundreds of homes, locations, and assisted in 49 exorcisms, and he's appeared on several TV shows, including Sightings, Unsolved Mysteries, Primetime Live, and he was featured in the film with Father Malachi Martin, Hostage to the Devil, that you can see that on Netflix. So anyway, welcome, gentlemen. It is a thrill to have you both on. I imagine that you have a host of story to tell, so I'm going to ask you what I ask all my guests, even though, Jimmy, we already have a giveaway with you. Let's start with you, William. What happened? Did you ever have an experience as a kid also, or was that only Jimmy?
No, I never had an experience as a child. I got into it from magic.
Okay.
I started doing magic at age 7, and, like most, we were watching In Search of and all the unexplained kind of shows. And from that, I looked at both from a debunking end to, of course, a fascination. And that's how I got into it, is I was investigating cases, not setting out to do it, but I, like Houdini, really would have loved to find it and wanted to find it. And
right.
How I got into it. And then, you debunk, and then you get a case and you're like, oh, this is not like the others. This is not a fake fortune teller. This is, this is something very different.
Right.
And that's how I got connected to it. It was from the illusionist end.
Okay. which is really interesting because I know that a lot of magicians they kind of like, I guess because they know how to create illusion, they understand, a lot of things that look like it's paranormal are obviously illusion. So, and
Right. I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, a religion was started with leg sounds, with the Fox sisters. So, I mean,
mhm.
when you look at things like that, um, as a member of Psychic Investigation Committee, went to tons of these people who came extremely recommended. They're the real deal and everything. Telekinesis, never, ever, ever saw legitimate demonstration of that whatsoever. And if you're a layman,
Right.
uh, it's really impossible for you to tell. You don't have that expertise. Just like for me, you said, Bill, are you an expert at mental illness? I said, well, I've been around it, but I'm not a qualified person.
Right.
Or if I'm going to look at a photo, I'm not the guy to ask, is that really a reflection or not? Granted, I've seen, the experts have told me enough that there's a lot I know now, but still, I'm not an optical expert. There, I judge a photo. So I think it's very important to bring the proper professionals in. But you're right. I would say I was surprised because I forgot about magicians. I feared that these were my friends, and when Lindley Street came out, I was worried how they would kind of react to all that. But it wasn't as I expected. A lot of them read the book and said, well, something happened there.
Yeah.
It was obvious not the same genre as fake seance or something like that. It wasn't in that realm. This was something different, an experience that happened. I was surprised that it was embraced. I'm sure a few probably made my back, but they probably were doing that before the book came out. So
Okay, well, and you bring up, I imagine that you probably had knew other magicians who hadn't maybe had that aha moment like you had or whatever happened, which I would love to know. Was it an actual paranormal experience? Was it talking to a psychic that said stuff that you knew there's no way this person knows about this? How did that come about?
um, well, I would say that there was one person in the family years ago, not on my side, but on my girlfriend's side, and she was somebody who had some sort of, didn't do it for money,
Right.
standing readings or any. Not that I have anything against people making
No, I
money,
know, I know where you're going with it.
but and she came and she said, um, that I was in a band, which of course I'm like, yeah, big deal. And she said, you have an unusual set. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe my girlfriend showed him a photo of the band.
Okay.
And, she said we had a keyboard, guitar, bass, and drums, which was a little bit unusual. It wasn't, unheard of, but if you were to guess at four guys in a band that wouldn't be the traditional guitar, bass, drums.
Okay.
And then she said, you'll have you're going to have a sax player and a girl singer, and I'm like, no way. And they said, yeah, girl singer, but, just a little bit, a few songs. And I'm like, no. Now I knew she was, way off her rocker. And she said, and I said, are we going to, make it or what or whatever? She says, I see two paths. She says, you're either going to make it or the piano player is going to disband the group, and he's going to get involved in cocaine.
Ooh.
And so I heard all that, and she said some other things too. And then she said, I think she knew that me and that girl weren't going to last because.
Okay.
And this was cool because. Half of it I didn't know, and it all came true. The girl drummer, the girl that my wishes and everything. They let her sing some songs at some gigs, and then, luckily that petered out. But John's brother plays the sax, and he finally begged his way into the band, and we're glad to have him. He was great sax player too. Ended up being a nice addition, and there was some coke going on, and let's just say we didn't get famous.
Okay, so she was right. But I know what you're going with that. That she.
Yeah, and I still wasn't completely convinced that was in the. Wow. Okay, we know she's not a faker. There's no motivation there. So, and I met her, and so I didn't think that there was anything on purpose. I was convinced she may have been convincing herself. I mean, some people are just really good at certain things, or some people are good at reading people,
right?
Which is not really an intuitive. Well, it's intuitive in a way. It is matching shapes of faces, and our mind goes through it until we match that with somebody we know,
sure.
And then we make those correlations, and we either like somebody instantly or that kind of thing. So yeah, we all do that, but I thought maybe it was that, and then I thought maybe some of it was luck, but as more true. And then the final, I looked back on it and I said, this just wasn't, oh, you got 4 guys in a band. I mean, this was, she really saw it. Now, some of it you could have guessed at or whatever, but it was just all too bizarre, all too accurate. And the fact that she actually at first didn't even want to do anything for quite a while until finally she said, oh, I'm in the mood,
Right,
and I think,
okay, she was hesitant. So, and like you said, it didn't convince you, but it kind of made a dent in your disbelief, kind of like, okay, possibly. How about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, that may be.
Well, that's how it starts. And
yeah. Of course, I doubt myself too. You start doubting, what exactly was said, and I don't have it on recording, but that's what happened. But and same thing with the paranormal. Some morning you wake up and you're like, God.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being a skeptic, because I think that once you're a skeptic or you have a certain standard or a threshold, once you do get that, whatever the moment is or whatever evidence, you're like, okay, this is, I haven't set the bar so low that anything could convince me. If this has convinced me, I know that this is genuine.
Everybody could be a skeptic, because that's how you eliminate the variables to know that something is, paranormal or not. Jimmy and I are both healthy skeptics.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to be, because you're right. You're absolutely right. Because of the nature of this field, there's a lot of things there that are either totally false or are not what they appear to be. So, Jimmy, what about you? Because you mentioned that you had a childhood experience. What happened with you?
Hey, Marlene.
Yes.
Bill's a little chatterbox tonight.
I'm sorry.
I love it when you're a chatterbox.
That was a good story. That was great.
I know. He knows I like when he talks. So I've always had a fascination with paranormal, unexplained mysteries, UFOs, ever since I was a kid.
Right.
And like Bill said, In Search Of was one of my big influences as a kid.
Yes.
There was one episode with Hans Holzer where it was called In Search of Ghosts.
Yes.
And I was a little kid, and I remember asking my mom for a flashlight, and she was, "What do you need it for?" I said, "Don't worry about it." And I went down the basement looking for ghosts because I thought that's how you could find them. And she was always reading Stephen King books, and and I would pick them up right after she read them. And I did have an incident. If you want to hear the story,
yeah.
I don't think I was like brought up in a haunted house, but I did have a weird incident that kind of woke me up to something weird going on here. So okay, it was around 7:00 at night. It wasn't dark or anything. My mother had some friends over, and she says, "Jimmy, stay up in your room. I have friends over. Don't come down here." So I don't know what they were doing. Maybe they were doing coke with your drummer, Bill. So they said, "Don't come down there." So I was up on my in my bedroom, laying on my stomach on the bed, with the lights on, and I was listening to the radio. It was a baseball game, I remember, and I was just laying there. It wasn't a scary atmosphere or anything. and I was on my stomach and my legs were bent, like over my back. So so the radio starts changing stations, and I hear it, cutting in and out to different stations. And even as a kid, I was like, "That's weird. It must be like interference or something." And then I look over, and it was an old, like a desktop radio with 2 dials, volume and tuning,
Right.
and I could see the tuning knob going back and forth real fast by itself.
Oh,
So I did my big eyes thing, like, ooh, and then then all of a sudden my legs got slammed onto the bed right after I noticed the thing,
oh.
going back and forth. So I ran downstairs like my mother said not to, and she goes, "Jimmy, get back." I told her the whole story, and she goes, "Jimmy, get back up in bed. There's no such thing as ghosts." So like, wow,
Okay.
that wasn't nice.
Yeah. Wow. Did she ever later on tell you if she had her own experiences, or did she?
You know what? I tell her so many stories. Like when I was a funny little kid, and I was up to something, and I always tell her these stories. Like, "Ma, remember I did this? Remember that? I used to sleep in the toy box as a vampire with a cape on, with my arms crossed, and I used, and she doesn't remember anything." Like I said, "Ma, I remember like one time we saw a UFO on the side of the highway, like during broad daylight." And I said, "Ma, remember that time?" So I was trying to get more details about it, so I could tell people. And she was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Like she doesn't remember all these little things when I was a kid.
She's a bad collaborator.
She is.
It's because I've heard of one of two versions. One, when the kids are little, parents deny it because they're afraid of scaring their kids more, and then others genuinely have no idea.
You know when I think I scared my mother? I just remember this. It was April 3rd. I don't know what year, but it was a grandfather's birthday, and he lives about an hour away. And we were just leaving the driveway, and I was little enough to sit in between my parents. I remember in the front seat, and I said, and it just came out of my mouth. I didn't even think about it. It says, "We're gonna get robbed tonight." And my mother actually gave me a little slap in the face and said, "Don't talk like that." And I said, I didn't even think of it. It just came out of my mouth.
Right.
And we never got robbed before. I don't even know where I got that idea from. And then when we got home, the window was broken open, and they stole my father's guns and coin collection.
Oh my God.
And she'll say she doesn't remember that either. So maybe she blocked everything out.
Let me. But that slap in the face, I'm sure.
Next time it's gonna be. Are you really my child? I don't remember having you.
Yeah.
But you know what? Up to a certain point, you gotta believe that she believed in something, because if she not, she wouldn't have gotten upset about it. Almost like a superstitious kind of thing, like you said.
Yeah, I understand like where'd that come from, but my daughter now, if she's a teenager, and she gets a little sassy sometimes.
Yeah.
So if I'm yelling at her, we've had two lights, like totally light bulbs, like what do you call it, like explode.
Whoa.
While I was yelling. And then like last time she was arguing with me, I raised my voice, and do you see the lights flicker? She goes, "Dad, stop it." So I think I got them believing something. So hopefully they'll behave.
I can imagine.
And really, it's just your horrifying singing voice.
Probably. I have the voice of an angel.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. That's a whole different thing when you got teenagers. It's like,
oof.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I wanted to be a parent. Remember, I wanted to be a parent.
Yeah.
So,
I want to grow up.
So here you guys, you started early, Jimmy. Did you ever have any other experiences later on, as maybe as an adolescent, or what happened to you?
I was telling Bill one day, I said I had more experiences. Like I've literally gone to hundreds and hundreds of haunted houses, supposedly haunted houses, and back in the 90s, they were the worst of the worst, because the Warrens were the only people doing that kind of stuff,
right?
In that capacity back then. So we're just taking the worst of the worst. So I seen some stuff in some houses, but I've had more experiences just on my own in my regular life, like seeing shadow figures. Well, I don't know where they are, or seeing I don't know if it's a spirit, a ghost, whatever. Like I've had. I even saw. This is creepy because it's a new thing. I was coincidentally driving in a cemetery last year or so, and I looked in my rearview mirror and I saw like a Slender Man type.
What?
Like they talk about the Hat Man now. I'm sorry,
yes.
like the Hat Man.
Yeah.
So
I
was with my kids, and and I look at my rearview mirror, and it's it's a good 100 feet away in back of me, and I see this black, tall, thin shadow, a guy with a hat on, all black, and it's walking with almost like all static around it, like it wasn't defined perfectly.
Yes,
And,
that's a common archetype for that.
and I
Matter of
didn't.
fact,
It was
we
kind of
have
a
a
new
story
thing.
about that. Phantom messages. We got a bonus case that involves the Blackwing Shadow creature and the Top Hat Man. But that's cool. Did it have hooves, Jimmy?
The what?
Did it have hooves or boots?
It was a black winged creature. No, I just made that part up.
Nice.
But anyways, I looked in the side mirror. He's there, and he's walking at a really weird gait. Like his legs weren't they weren't moving like a person's naturally walks.
Wow.
And then I looked in the other mirror to see if I was imagining it, and I saw it in the other mirror. And by the time I said, "Kids, do you see what I see?" it was gone.
And
And it was
this
really tall. It was like 8 feet tall.
Yeah, that's a. You may not even know this, Jimmy, but that is that's like a common description.
But I think it's
not
so corny.
unusual. So that's
Like it's like I jumped on the new bandwagon, but I really saw it. I was mad. I was like, "Why do I got to see this now?"
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Was there something that was going on with you? I mean, as far as why you think you saw that?
Marlene, we were catching Pokemon in the cemetery.
Okay.
That's
well,
how
I don't know what to tell you. The Pokemon part is fine.
Yeah.
The cemetery part
we,
is like
we weren't doing anything creepy or searching out anything, you know.
Well, the Top Hat Man probably said, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to get any rest with these people.
Yeah, and then again, I think it's like the Truman Show, and people are just throwing stuff at us, seeing what our reaction is. Let's give him the hat man.
It sounds like, Jimmy, like you didn't have to go looking for haunted houses. The haunted came to you. And how about for you, Bill? You're saying that first incident was the one that kind of like left a question mark. What happened? Did you have an actual experience, or again, was it that you came across somebody that was able to tell you something that you're saying, no way this person can know this?
Well, that was like the first quote unquote paranormal. As far as hauntings, poltergeist and a few exorcisms ended up inevitably following, and that's when I saw more of what I would say would be, open me up to continue to search. When I would say the most varied of experiences, although not negative or frightening or anything, I would say would be the Haunted House Diaries, because that farmhouse there in Connecticut is in a flap area, paranormal flap area. Mm-hmm. So there's multiple houses around there that are haunted. There's UFO sightings,
right?
Big, and it's just a paranormal circus, as my buddy calls it. But with that, staying in that house and the variety of incidents there, it's like a shopping mall for the paranormal. So that was a very nice, efficient way to have a variety of things. We had a lot of the telltale things happen. Batteries being ran out instantly.
Right.
It looked like 100. Well, I say 100. I don't know why my head said that, but a whole bunch of people, like, over my head. And I said that, and Donna, the lady of the house, said, "Oh my God, that's exactly what Paul and Ben said." Paul and Ben were there.
Okay.
Alternate day when I wasn't there, and they said they went to the same area, and then Shane Soroy was investigation, and
mm-hmm.
also. But that was really cool, because I was wondering, again, if it happens to me, I'm wondering, okay, this seems like a real experience to me, but am I hallucinating? Here I am. I'm trying to write a book, and I'm doing an investigation. So, am I completely objective myself? If it's just me experiences it as real as it could be to me, it's hard to tell. But if multiple people are confirming it, then at least I say, okay, as long as we rule out the regular stuff or anything electronic or weird things that could cause us to hallucinate or anything like that, which is EM. You do run into that. Wasn't the case in this house. So, but yeah, that's what's always tough if you're alone in the experience. I mean, unless it's so dramatic,
right?
And fits other descriptions like Jimmy's experience of Top Hat Man. I mean, that's pretty clear. If you have an experience where you're like, because you do get, at least I do. I end up double guessing even things that I know. It's just because the mind continually says, "Wow, that's far out," and you retrace your steps and you say, "Yeah, that's what happened."
Have you ever had an experience like what happened to Jimmy at home? In other words, you weren't in a haunted location and in other words, there weren't really any other, let's say the owners or anybody. Did you ever had an experience that it's like, I'm at home and I know once you go through that filter of the possible?
Right. Not at home, but a magician friend of mine, when we were in college, we went to, and this is one of the stories in the book, although this one I say, I don't know what it is, but I thought it was cool. Most of our stories and Phantom Messages, have witnesses and whatnot. This was me and my buddy in college, and we would hang out at graveyards because we didn't like the bars, and, and we would practice magic and talk and, all this stuff. And so one night, like, hey, let's try to communicate with somebody here, So we walked around and found an old gravestone, and it's one of those ones that had the pictures of the people on it,
Okay.
You don't see them much today, but or even then, and so it had the picture on, and it was a little girl, probably about 10, 12. She had glasses and black hair, and her name was Mary. I remember that because that's what we call. So we stayed around the gravestone. We said, okay, how are we going to do this? And we let the radio play, static.
Okay.
Near the car, and we let the static run for a long time, because we knew that, of course, static could be interrupted and stuff. So we wanted to make sure we had nice, solid. No way in the heck that you're ever gonna get a station. We made the right tune. So after about 20 minutes or a half hour, because we did other stuff while we let that run, because little scientists are trying to be, and then we came back. We said, okay, we got white snow for past half hour, so let's try something. And we would say, hey, Mary, let us know we're there. We both said different, just whatever came to our head. And nothing happened. And my buddy goes, hey, let's just yell at her at the counter. So we did it 1, 2, 3, and we yelled. And right after we did that, the radio broke, and it was like that, just like unintelligible, and then went back to static.
Oh.
That fascinated us, and we let it play after that, and it never went back to a station. And that's one of those things you say, well, is that real, or is it? I'll tell you, the timing was there. Mm-hmm. It was a very brief, like that. It was very, very quick, and the timing was there. Was it paranormal? I'd say, you can argue either way, but
sure,
it's a good possibility. It's a case anyhow that made me want to pursue the paranormal more and more.
Absolutely, because like you said, yeah, the what ifs, but like again, that timing thing. That's so. And you mentioned earlier that you had also been involved in some exorcisms. What did you go like as a witness? Were you like, hey, I want to see this, or is this BS? Is this somebody that either mental illness or acting out? Did you ever have that moment that you're like, God?
A lot of times they were. I've been to far less than Jimmy. Probably about, I think it was like 8 or so altogether. But some of them were just pretty fake right away. But I went as somebody that the family brought in, So, they would go and they'd try blessing, they'd try the therapy, different things.
Right.
So I was to go in there as that can get it done, not as a magician, but
Right.
I would be a made up character, whatever that happened to be, whatever I felt like, however I wanted to dress, that kind of thing. And I would go in there and I would use magic. Carbon arrow effect is what is commonly called now because of this TV show, and that's when you do magic, but people don't know you're doing magic.
Okay.
You know. So I would go in there. There was a few things that I would do: fire from the hands, all the time. Commanding. I would do mumbo jumbo sayings.
Okay.
Happen to be, and now some people would say these people were faking it. I don't believe that was true in those cases, and I know Jimmy said cases. That's definitely not the case. The big question, of course, at that time, I thought I was simply, snapping them up because they believe I can.
Okay.
May be true, but what I don't know is, was I fooling an entity? Or what, you know what I mean? Was it that, or was
Okay.
it the person? I know in some cases, just ignoring the person and not giving them attention and all of that, you could have them snap out of it. But obviously, in real cases and extreme cases, but that was my role, was as a magician. I started getting calls. My brother spends a lot of money on a fortune teller.
Mm-hmm.
Could you come help or explain
Okay.
to him? And I said, no, I can't explain it to him, but I could show up as a psychic. And if I wow him and then tell him I'm fake, then it'll be impactful. If I just go
Sure.
and tell him a magician's fake, he's not going to. So I would do things like that. It was weird. I was writing in a bunch of newspapers. I often got those kind of calls, and I was quite shocked to receive them. I did it on my own through the Psychic Investigation Committee and stuff, which is magician led, but I didn't really expect to be getting the calls like that. Could you convince them, or could you do this, or you think that maybe you can solve this.
Right. Which is.
But it
Which,
was
let me tell you
cool.
something. If that was the case, that I can see would be a very powerful convincer, like what you just described. That after you do this, you say, "Look, I'm not really psychic. I'm just a magician, and this the same. What I did, this other person could be doing to you. They're not really psychic."
Right. Although sometimes it backfires because they swear you're psychic.
Okay.
No, really. It's
Yeah, I don't know.
and,
There's people who want to believe no matter what.
every magician has had that. I've done shows where people came up to me and said, when you did this, I know that was real. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. And thank you, but no. They're like, you don't have to tell us. We know. You
And it's like, okay, you're giving the big secret from them.
you get that often, but you would get it. And inevitably, the saddest thing, you'd always get a child here saying, "Could you make me walk?"
Okay.
That wasn't related, but just something I always think about. It's always sad when that's asked.
So Jimmy, in the bio that I read, you obviously started doing classes with Ed and Lorraine Warren, like you said, because back then they were like one of the few, I don't want to say even groups that were actually doing this, that were involved with this. And you joined the group, and I know that let's say, put it this way, the majority of their cases that have publicity are usually very dark. What happened? What was like the first time that you went to one of these that you were like, okay, this is pretty malevolent here. This is very sinister. This is not maybe just like a regular dead person haunting.
I mean, everyone has their opinions on the Warrens. because like, oh my God, they had all these sick cases. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, they would bring in the recording machine for us every Monday to listen to all the cases that came in that
Okay.
week, and we go through them all and decide which ones seemed like they needed the most help, or
Sure.
if people were getting hurt, or if children were involved, and then and if it wasn't too far away, and we'd pick cases that way to we choose cases that way. So everybody's like, oh my God, you saw this and you saw that. It's like, well, yeah, they're getting the worst of the worst, and they're only people doing it. You're gonna see some stuff. But of course, when you do a book or a movie,
Right.
it's embellished and stuff. And but I what your question was, if I
Well, the
went to
thing
a
is,
house
and I know that sometimes publicity, like you said, maybe of all the cases that they ever handled or came across, the ones that have risen to the surface and that the public knows about are the more horrific ones, because they're scarier.
yeah.
Um,
or were promoted better. I mean,
right, or they were
you know,
promoted that way.
a
Man,
lot of people say, "Why is Connecticut so haunted?" And they name all these cases,
sure.
Yeah.
and like, well, Connecticut, yes, it does have a lot, and there's some legitimacy to that statement. But the other states didn't have that in Lorraine, so obviously you weren't hearing about as many. There were other people, but I mean, you know.
And one house that's included in our book, Phantom Messages, is about the haunted cable box, which was one of the more interesting cases that we went to, with a cable box that was communicating with the family.
Yeah, that's a good one. You
That,
should talk about that one.
what I gotta hear this.
Oh,
No, you're gonna know these stories so good you could be me as a guest.
okay.
All right, all right. The mid '90s, sometime.
I didn't mean to
Um,
put that.
there was it's a two-family house. I think they were on the first floor. The family was complaining that their television was turning channels by itself. Big deal, right?
right.
So, and it happened at 11 o'clock. It started happening at 11 o'clock on a Friday. And the cable box, this is back when the cable box went from only 0 to 72.
Right.
Buckle my shoe. And then, so you have to lighten it up so people don't get too scared. So it was a 0 to 72, and rapid fire back and forth, down up and down the dial. So they said, "Oh, the cable must be broken tonight. Let's go to sleep." And then the next day, that happened at 11 p.m. At 11 a.m., the same thing started happening to their TV. So the son, there was a 14-year-old boy. He said maybe it's cousin whoever that lived. This is from Connecticut, but they had a cousin that lived in Florida that just committed suicide weeks before. So he said maybe it's cousin whoever trying to communicate with us. And as soon as it did that, it seemed like it got more frenzied. The cable box flipping stations. So the mother suggested, let's say that 1 equals A. Use it as a Ouija board.
Okay.
So channel 1 is A and channel Z is 26. So as soon as she said that, it went to 25, 5, then 19, which using that code spells yes. So for the next hour or two, they just kept asking the TV questions, and they'd write down all the numbers and then decipher it later. And it gave them this big, long, detailed story about how this man was killed in the apartment, and his killers were never found. He's buried down the street. Gave a social security number. He's a missing person. So the next day, the father calls the police department and says, "I got a weird story for you, but I feel bad if this really happened." And the guy, his words, is a soul in need.
Right.
So the police officers came down, and they put in the report. They witnessed the cable box moving. The first, I think there's 2 that came first, and they both witnessed it moving. I think it gave information about the officers, like their kids' names, their home telephone number,
Wow.
and this is before internet.
Uh-huh.
So even if you had
the officers went upstairs. They checked. They wanted to make sure there was no hidden remotes, and they watched all the people. I mean, they did their they did pretty good due diligence.
And I think it also helped that they were believers, I think, to begin with. And then they called their captain, sergeant, whatever, to come down, who was a total non-believer. And he says, no matter what's going on here, I think it's that kid underneath a blanket, some other remote, answering all these questions about the police officers. But then this box would, well, I didn't get to the story. The person who supposedly died, that is trying to communicate with them, never existed. And the name they gave him never existed. The social security number never existed. There's no missing people around that area. Nothing matched up. So then they figured, we got something else here, and it's not good.
Okay.
But they still had parties. They had parties like, for example, the guy's name was Joe. So they have Joe parties where all the neighbors would come one by one into the house, and if you walked into the room, the channel would go to your age. Like one after another would just click 44, said 27. They just walk by, and when you leave, it blinks your age 3 times.
Wow.
So they gave it a lot of recognition.
I was about to say, at what point did this go south? Did it ever go south? That they're like,
yeah. At some point, I know they started hearing whispers and stuff and seeing shadow figures in the boys' room. And one time we were investigating, trying to get some evidence, and I was video recording in the boys' room, and it wasn't pitch black because we had the hall light on, so you could see better.
right.
But you could see like black, like swirling mists, but it wouldn't capture on the camera. Like I couldn't see it on the viewfinder, so it was getting frustrating. So then the boy comes in. And I say he could have done this himself. I don't know. But a lot of people fake stuff just so you keep interested in their case.
Right.
So that, they like, even though stuff's really happening, it's like, I want you to believe me. And the 14-year-old boy came running into the room and he goes, something just ran through my stomach. Like, what? And he lifts up his shirt. There's a big like round burn mark, like bowling ball size on his stomach.
Wow.
And I said, what happened? He goes, he called it a little muscle dude. And he's like, a 3 feet tall. There was this little muscle dude, 3 feet muscle dude with big pointy ears, was looking at me, and then he put his head down and charged and went into my stomach, and he disappeared as he hit my stomach.
Oh my, that's out
That
there.
sounds like
that is out
troll
there.
goblin encounter or something. We actually have a troll story in the bonus section.
Holy mackerel.
Let me tell you something. That's way out there as
Jimmy,
far as
that sounds like
explanations
you had
go.
a troll.
Oh, and there's more, if you want to hear a little bit more on that one.
Yeah,
So and this
that's a
was
good chapter.
this was one of those cases where, like, I was an investigator for the Warren, so it's not my job to, make decisions. Just observe and report when we go there and bring it back to them.
Right.
So they obviously wanted us to catch something on video, so we kept going back and back and back, and then I said, do you guys think you could help us? Because this has been going on for weeks and weeks, and we haven't gotten help yet. And I said, listen, don't say anything, because I'm a rebel. Don't say anything. We could try to do a little blessing of your house next week, and we'll try anyway. Even the church across the street didn't want to help them.
Oh.
So we got blessed church incense, the holy water, some like home exorcism prayers,
Mm-hmm.
and before we started, the guy said, he said, could I play? He had the whole Bible on tape, like cassette tapes, like 20 of them.
Okay.
So he says, can I play one of these when you're doing your thing? And I said, of course you can. So he opened the clamshell case. He's like, which one do you want to hear? And I just pointed to, I think, the first one. He's like, I don't know. I'm not
Jimmy's like, which one's Metallica? I don't
Yeah. There's no Green Day in there.
Yeah.
So he put the cassette in those all stand-up rack systems, and he put the tape in, and it starts playing backwards.
Ooh.
And like I said, anything backwards sounds creepy, but it was the Bible backwards, which made it double creepy.
Oh God.
So I said, take that out of there. That's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
So
It's like, yeah.
and then I went into my little investigative mode. I said, let's try all the other tapes, because maybe the player's broken. So all the other tapes work fine. And I said, let's put that tape back in, the original one, and it plays backwards. And I have the tape, and it still plays backwards. So
And I think I figured it out. But
and
Jimmy, But if I try to test my theory, I'd probably break the tape. So Jimmy won't let me touch it.
So then
Nicely so.
the cable box seemed to like stop needing the box to communicate. Like now it was in. Like now it was in with them. It didn't need that anymore, I guess, to do what they wanted to do.
Right.
So it hasn't talked in weeks now. It sounds weird saying the cable box hasn't talked. But anyway, so that the night we went there, the family told us that the night before we got there, the cable box started blinking again, and it spelled out "Watch out tonight." That day before we got there. So that happened. We did our thing, and then I called them the next morning to see how everything was. No answer. Next day, I don't know. I called for a good 4 or 5 days in a row, and there's never any answer. And I drove down to the house, and totally gone.
They left? They left?
Yeah, they left.
Something happened.
Not everything is good.
What a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and I did try to find them on the internet last year or so, and I think they live in Florida.
So in other words, they went. You're saying at some point, the Ouija cable box thing, it just got darker when they started seeing shadow figures, and then it wasn't so much fun. But then,
their voices in their head when they were trying to go to sleep, that kind of stuff.
Right,
and that was everybody in the family being affected by it.
There was I remember it was mainly the 14-year-old son. It seemed centered around him. Oh, and how about this little bonus treat?
Ooh.
But he had that cousin in Florida I was telling you about that he would go visit him often, and I said, when you're doing a case like this, you're like, how come all of a sudden this started happening? Like what?
Right.
Right. You always try to get what's going on in the family. And,
right. Did you make a new friend? Do you put something new in the house? Like what shook the recipe here? So
you adopt a little imp.
Yeah. So this is like his fifth interview. Like they have a crews go over interview them, time and time again, and then finally the father says, "Why don't you tell him what you wanted to tell him?" So like, we're getting something here. He's like, "Well, last time I went to see whoever in Florida, we were out skateboarding, and he says, come on, we're gonna do something cool." And he goes, they went to it's like a clearing in the woods where they said that all these guys put robes on. And they got in a circle, and he goes, there's a big pentagram in the circle. And they brought out a goat, and they said they started chanting. And then someone took a sword to the goat's head.
Oh, God.
And he said a yellow beam of light went right from where the goat was all the way up to the sky. And like they're chanting, and then as soon as that happened, they stopped chanting. And he goes, but I wasn't involved in it. I didn't want any part of that. But he goes, that maybe has something to do with it. I don't know. So we don't know. It's a theory.
This was the cousin that committed suicide?
Yeah. I'm sure there's more to that story, too.
Yeah.
So, okay. So who they thought was a cousin didn't turn out to be the cousin. Turned out to be a fictitious character that never had died, all that information. But by then it had gotten an entry. How long did that go on for before they realized, man, this is not good? Weeks? Months? How long?
Well, as soon as they found out that it wasn't, that man didn't exist with that social security number, they got scared, but they were still curious. Like, wow, our TV's talking to us. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So,
and there could have been multiple things involved. Maybe the TV thing was negative, but there was a bunch of other stuff coming through, because there's so much going on there. You never know,
Plus, always that adolescent who witnessed some type of ritual. That's pretty good. You throw that into the mix.
But it looks like this kid has some. As I was watching the interview with the family later, and there's a time where he just stares into the camera.
Really?
And it's really creepy. I think there's something up with that kid.
Yeah, we have some pictures with that case, including the police report, which is pretty cool. It's always nice that police report's in there.
And then they just leave. And it makes you wonder. This was after you did your blessing.
Yeah. We had good hearts. We're trying to do good.
Makes you wonder what was
Jimmy
up with
has
that.
one of the goodest hearts I know.
Well,
he has a good heart.
So
And nobody's gooder than me at English either, so I know.
let me, Jimmy, at what point did you? Because, like you said, you were an investigator, so you were basically going in at some point just to document, like,
Right.
what's going on.
Right.
What's actually occurring.
Yeah. By the time we got there, all the heavy stuff usually is gone. It's like
Right.
this stuff happens all in the beginning, and then it's like, what are the odds something's going to happen when you're there for your little window of 2 or 3 hours or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But
Unless you're
I mean,
really
once
lucky.
I think we're interviewing them at the kitchen table, and the toaster popped up. You know what I mean? Like little stuff like that. Like
Right.
one time where the cable box wasn't talking anymore, so they were trying to like beg it to talk in front of us so we can get it on video because nobody ever recorded it. And you hear it going clink clink clink. You could hear like clunking sounds in the
Yeah.
box, like it was trying to do something, but it couldn't. And they did have a cable technician swap out boxes just to
Oh, really?
see if that shook it up a little bit. And he said it did seem to have a problem with the new box.
But that's
So
such
I mean, that's
I'm thinking to myself, of all the ways that you would think something's going to gain entry, it's through the cable
Yeah,
box.
it wasn't forward compatible, evidently.
That's
so that's what we're thinking, that electronics in the future are gonna. One of these electronics is gonna be like the miracle thing that's gonna communicate with
yeah.
the other side somehow.
Yeah,
And
I went in on a case one time where grandma who was deceased was contacting the grandson through a phone that was totally, not connected, not, like, yeah, it had been powered up, but there was no connection.
Holy mackerels!
And I was like, and this was one of those little flip phones.
In our book.
So,
Yeah, that's what Phantom Messages is all about, whether it's entities or in the part, how those communications are similar and different. And, they're quite fascinating. And, to Jimmy's point, I mean, even when, Alexander Graham Bell and, all of those early inventors, they all thought about communicating to the dead. I mean,
yes.
It's a miracle. People actually doubted that you could talk back and forth without being in the same room. I mean, this was huge.
Yes.
So that now we were able to do this crazy communication at such an advanced level. And of course his parents were spiritualists, but besides everybody, it went to everybody's mind, could this device communicate? And then when a new device comes, we ask the same questions.
Right.
And Jim asked those questions with Phantom Messages. Hey, it used to be phone calls from the dead. Hey, but are they texting? Are they emailing? Are they using cell phones? What's going on?
Hey, Bill Hall.
They're doing all of that.
What about the Jack Freeze story?
Yeah, Jack. Well, that's an email one.
What happened with Jack Freeze?
That was one of the classic cases we did. Most of our cases are never before in print. The Jack one is interesting because he died quite suddenly and young. I forget his age, but
like 31 or something.
Yeah, it was early 30s, 30, 32, and his loved ones began getting emails from him, talking in his way. When you get an email, his kind of wording and everything. So of course they check and see, did somebody get into his account or what?
Right.
Jimmy and I did come across there's actually services that will send communications after you die on your behalf and blah, blah. So we can,
Okay.
But of course, we know grandmas aren't using that service, and Jack died suddenly. We doubt that would be the case, obviously, but, try to be thorough. But so he's getting these messages, and one of the messages in particular was a conversation that his friend had with him in the attic. He was thinking about doing some renovations and brought Jack up to show him, and Jack looks around and says, "Clean your effing attic." And so one of the emails was sent to him and says, "Hey, clean your effing hand. And that was a shocker because that was a conversation that only they had, and it was
Wow.
recent. And it wasn't memorable. It wasn't like, oh, that's something he went around and told everybody, and that person broke into his account, and so it really
Right.
gets weird. And then he also predicted
His friend broke his ankle or something.
broken his ankle. He predicted
He warned him.
one of the emails telling him to be careful.
Really?
Yeah.
And we
Wow.
always think, like, we have a time slip section and stuff, but we always think when somebody's predicting the future,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know if they're actually predicting the future or are now in the future looking to the past. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
I always think that way. And in some cases it seems more apparent than others that it's one way or other, just because it makes more sense to us that way. But I often think it could be either, right? I mean, it could be
Yeah.
him knowing the future, or it could be Jack Frost from a time, maybe in a different universe or whatever, who already knows the future.
And one of the subjects of the emails was "I'm watching you."
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
God.
And the family says, I think one of the friends says, yeah, I think it was Jack. And some of the family members are like, we'd like to think it was him. We don't really know, but one thing's for sure is nobody knows.
And what happened? It just stopped? It eventually died out, or what happened?
I think after a few months, it stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, it did die out. The longest, there are some long ones that go 18 months. I think
Wow.
one went years. Um, in case, which people have heard of. Jimmy and I did a revisit on that and got new information and exclusive from some of the people who were there that never really talked about it. So, but Dodlinson had over 300 phantom messages coming by computer in 1906, I believe it was. So it coming by computer without any internet or anything like that. And these messages were still going back and forth, and they were in Old English.
Oh,
Yeah, it was really weird. I mean, they actually needed the guy with Ken, who was involved. Ken Webster had to get his friend who was an English teacher to even decipher them, and the responses, and the teacher quickly says, "This doesn't look like somebody trying to write in Old English. This looks like somebody from that time." And what was really weird is the phantom messages would occur very fast after a question was asked or something. So it wasn't like somebody
right. Like, let me look it up and I'll get
looked
back
up
to
the
you.
Old English or whatever. And it was even faster in in some of the case. Sometimes it waited, and then they showed up or whatever. But some of them came so fast you wouldn't have even been able to type it. Well, we don't think it was, but because of what happens in the story. But and in that there's elements of poltergeist activity, even though kind of hard to say. I say poltergeist like activity. I don't think that was all there was, but it appeared to be just a lot of time slips happening in there. Phantom messages as being sometimes incorporated into time slips,
Right.
and other times, unknown entities. Sometimes somebody comes to say hello or has a warning or something like that. And the ones that are the weirdest, though, to me anyhow, I don't know about you, Jimmy, are you pick up the phone and you hear a future event. Like one of my favorite cases was the guy picks up the phone and he knows it's him on a respirator and dying. He
Oh my
just
God.
knows. You know how of course, if you've been around the paranormal, you walk into some place and you can feel, you can sense that kind of thing.
Yes.
When these people have kinds of phantom message calls or communications, they instantly know something's. I mean, come on, because if you pick up a phone, you hear respirators. I mean, that's not like the scariest thing in the
No.
world. No. But instead, the guy gets white and it's like, oh my, he knows what it is. Lets his girlfriend hear it, and Cheryl, and she knows what it is. They both know that they're hearing him die.
Oh God, that's kind of depressing there. I mean, think
Yeah,
about it.
Bill, come on, man.
No, but it's like if you think about it, it's like
Just kidding.
and sometimes I wonder, in a lot of cases, I'm not gonna. Sometimes you think, okay, sometimes it's loved ones who want us to let they communicate briefly, like to let their family know, hey, I'm okay, whatever, But sometimes I wonder about some of these cases where it's some entity using it as something to like what you described in that cable story, where this is their point of entry to get the dialogue going, and they mimic or they appear very innocuous. I'm just passing along some interesting information, and then before you know it, you got a full blown dark haunting going on.
I mean, with some of these messages, like the ones where you hear events, I'm not sure. It would be interesting. Obviously, we all love to know, what is behind them. Is it somebody directing it, or is it some sort of a bleed into our universe? But then why is it coming in through the phone? So many questions. I mean, there was another case where this guy's hearing metal banging and people's like a catastrophe, and this whole thing is leading up to 9/11, and getting these calls every day, and so you hear that and you're like, well, what about, and why him? And he had those on the answer machine, and again, family would listen to it, and I think one person couldn't even hear it. And again, if you hear these things, we've all watched horror movies and CPs. I mean, the sounds are nothing special, but when you know what the sounds are instinctively,
yes,
animal gut level, that's what we found in these phantom message calls, and you find that, of course, in other areas where Men in Black or whatever, where you see something just not quite right, your mind, because it is attuned to that's not normal, or that's not a normal gait, like Jimmy said, or that's something's off about their speech or their look, or that kind of thing. But and there's a lot of similarities between phantom calls amongst whether it's unknown entity, loved one, or aliens, or whatever it happens to be. There are similarities, and of course there are some differences, but I think it's the same modality, just like a lot of things in the paranormal. Which
did you guys run across any stories of anybody getting a phone call from a person that they knew, that later on they find out that at the time of the call that person was recently deceased? I mean, like in
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Lots of them.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And there's one, I think one of the longer cases, we mentioned it, we didn't, it might have been from some of the more original research back in from the phone calls of the dead, but I remember a case that lasted 4 years, and we do have cases that haven't been in print before that mirror this indicator, which is interesting, where they talk together, but the minute somebody realizes that they're dead, then the call stops. So,
oh wow,
hey,
okay.
Jim on the phone, he doesn't sound good. He says he needs to talk to you, and so you can't get a hold of the person. So Uncle Jim calls again. Still sounds sick, and
Right.
then all of a sudden you get a hold of the person, say, hey, you got to call Uncle Jim. He sounds sick. Blah blah blah. Oh, he committed suicide 4 days ago, or So those kinds of stories, they happen, and
Yes.
what's really is, aside from like your I guess it's a little bit easier. In other words, in these cases, it's not a case of the person looking for something or misinterpreting something. This is something that happened without, they didn't even know that there was anything paranormal involved as they had the paranormal experience. That's what's
Right.
cool about these stories, is they think they're just
Right.
talking as normal, and then all of a sudden they find out. We also have the living, and also have Phantom Message, living to the living. Where I swear I didn't make a phone call, but yet John calls back and says, "Bill, I got your message." That kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all different forms of this. I don't think it has to just be the dead. Well, obviously, in the case of entities or whatever, I wouldn't really call them dead, um, but there's all kinds of flavors of it. There was a few cases too where, in family members' contact, where they said that they needed to seek permission to contact, but they didn't.
Okay.
And they didn't care about any consequences. So, I don't know, it was interesting. That doesn't come up in, like, I would say it probably only comes up in maybe 10% of all the cases that, we've seen, but you hear that a few times. We needed permission, but they didn't get permission, and they weren't scared at all about any repercussions from it. So I just find that's kind of funny, I guess. I don't know. They're kind of like, well, we're supposed to have permission, but we don't, and they don't care.
Well, and it kind of makes sense where, like you said, sometimes there's people playing catch up with the fact that they've passed away, that they're still like self-aware, and it takes a while for the reality, we want to call it, like, that's it. My body is like, or maybe somebody comes for them and says, "Hey, by the way," and they're like, "You're dead." Yeah, but you are too. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, maybe they're not dead. If quantum physics is right, they may not be dead at all. I think there's a Jimmy and Bill in another universe that just sold their 500 millionth book.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Why can't we be that one?
Well, Jimmy, I told you, we got to build that multiple universe interface machine.
Let me tell you something. That's a mind bender when you start thinking of multiverses and like you said, the concept of what we think as dead and alive is not really. It's like dead if you want to use it because you're not on this dimension or on this reality, but you're somewhere else, just doing whatever.
Well, we know in cases of the living haunting the living that those haunts. The people look very much like those that we call spirits and ghosts, and usually it's in a dream state. So the person haunting, unbeknownst to them, is there, and then some other families being haunted by them. In very rare circumstances, the two parties, and it's a case of living haunted the living. So the girl has the dream. It's my nightmare is I come down these steps and you guys scream all the time. You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, you come down our stairs and we scream. Yes. But in the two cases I know of, the people when they met each other, it was just, imagine that shock. And then to sit and talk and then the nightmare stopped. But there's a case of, okay, it looks like a ghost, smells like a ghost, does everything a ghost does, yet it's a living person. That tells me that there's much more to this than we know.
Do you think that accounts for doppelgangers?
Or think we doppelgangers, I think the short answer is yes, I would believe that. If they're really doppelgangers, I do believe that because we're humans, a certain amount of us are made.
You want to hear a weird story about that? Kind of?
Yes.
Looks just like you. They come out formed, with the nose bent the same way mine is, or whatever. Whatever. Odds are you're going to get somebody who looks like you. However, in doppelganger experiences, then yes, I would say, I wouldn't bet my life on it, but my guess would be parallel universe intersect, multiple universes.
Oh.
Jimmy,
Well, listen to this one, Bill Hall. This is another one. I said, things happen in my regular life. I was at the convenience store, and there was no other, and I didn't think it was a big deal, but I was the only car in the parking lot at the time. And there was this guy standing in front of the storefront, a little guy, old, and his hair was cut so it looked like he just got it cut, like he just came out of the barber, like it was that fresh looking, and he was wearing a suit. I said it looks like a death suit. Not to be mean, but it looked like he should be. It looked like he was on his way to his funeral. It was like so. Because I just thought he was so neat, like everything was like neat, and the way he was standing there, I said he doesn't belong there. He doesn't. He didn't acknowledge me when I walked right by.
Like, didn't fit. Yeah.
It didn't fit. And then I said, well, there's not even a car here. I said, maybe he's waiting for somebody. He was solid. I said, maybe he's waiting for somebody. I just knew it was really significant. If you see somebody just standing there, you normally don't think they're odd. It's supernatural or anything. It's just a person standing there. But this guy, I got a weird feeling that he just didn't belong here, looking like that, standing there. I don't know why. So I told people about him when I got home too. I saw this guy. He didn't belong. He didn't fit here. Something was fishy. So the next day at work, I saw him come in dressed in like sweatpants and a shirt, but his hair was he had like the hair that's like going bald on top and then a little white on it. He had the same hair, but it wasn't clean. It wasn't like trimmed really neatly like it was yesterday.
Right. So,
It was just all. It's like he just did a bunch of yard work and he came shopping. So I saw him. I said, "Now this is too coincidental. Am I supposed to say something to him? Do I have a message for?" I felt like I didn't have anything to say, and I needed to. So I was just staring at him, saying, "Maybe he'll look back at me," and he didn't. And I took a picture of him with my phone. I have his picture somewhere on my phone, and like in my just intuition or whatever, I'm making sense out of it. I feel like he's gonna die. That's the whole idea I get out of the thing.
Right. That's what I thought of immediately when you said that. It was you were seeing.
But I mean, is it my job to tell him you're gonna die?
No,
like, I really felt like there's something that wasn't said that I'm supposed to say to the guy, even if I just said hi or something. Yeah, I didn't know. So if I see the guy again,
said, I saw you in yesterday.
I saw you. Yeah, but your hair was perfect, and now it's even longer. How do you explain that, sir?
Yeah. You were dressed for your funeral yesterday. Now you're not. Why
you're
not?
walking around like a little gentleman. I don't know.
Right, like he had his nice suit that they put for burial, and they cut his hair at the mortuary at the funeral home. Make him look all nice.
And it grew back and it looked a little curlier the next day. It didn't make sense.
I'll tell you, that would have been. I'm sure you couldn't have, but it would have been cool to find out who he was, so we can follow him around until he croaks.
If you guys have a suggestion, if I see him again, what to say? Maybe if I just said hi to him and see what he says. Maybe he has maybe he has something he'll tell me that'll change the world. I have this last secret I have to tell someone. And we'll save the world. I don't know.
He's going to tell you, you're the same guy I saw in like a black funeral suit the day ago. Oh,
you're going to see me in an empty parking lot in a little, like, what was it that you said, 7-Eleven or a little quick shop?
Yeah.
That's very significant there.
I'm not talking to anybody in a black suit in the convenience store anymore.
He was like a black-eyed children, but like a black-eyed old man. So we could have a whole... Yeah. That could be book 3, Bill.
Yeah.
That's... But Jet's a really great story that the next day you see the guy, but it's like, no. That's the dead you, and this is the live you. Wow. Yeah, and how do you tell somebody, by the way...
Hey, dead.
Is your life insurance up to date? No, but let me ask you something, Jimmy.
At some point, I don't know when.
But and like you said, unfortunately, there's no way for you to ever find out this guy, die that same day, the next week, and it'd be like, all right.
No, Jimmy, you should ask him his name, and if he asks why you want to know my name, say because I saw you yesterday in the funeral suit, so I want to track when you died.
Well,
somehow, I don't know, that wouldn't go over well.
Would have said sure. Yeah.
I cannot see that going over well at all. That would be like...
I was like, did you have a black suit?
Or can
Yeah,
you imagine if he
two
tells you,
of
"Hey, yeah, my twin brother just passed away. I just came from the funeral."
Yeah, that's what some people were saying.
I mean,
them.
you never know.
It was a hell of a coincidence. Whatever it was, didn't fit. It just felt wrong.
You should have
So
captured it, Jimmy, for questioning.
I think I crossed over to another dimension.
let me tell you. But that is such an unspooky place to see.
Exactly.
Whatever
That's
that
why it was a creepy situation. I made into a creepy situation.
But I'd probably be like, exactly like what? Did he wander away from home? Did he get out? And what is he doing here in a suit and like?
Yeah. He was just standing there looking at nothing. That was weird. He was like,
Yeah.
he was faced at an angle like he's not looking for a ride. He's not looking at the wall. He was just looking at. There's nothing there. Just a really weird situation.
Did he have one of those fixed eyed, no affect look on his face?
It looks like he was just a cardboard cutout standing there. Like,
I know what you're talking about. That if
Yeah.
you tried to do it, if a live person tried to do that, they couldn't pull it off.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever he was doing, if he was trying to creep me out, he did it.
Yeah, I know.
Did he have his mouth open, or was it like stitch closed or something?
I don't think it was stitched. He just
Well,
had
you would see the stitches anyhow.
but he had no expression at all.
Right, that's the scary part. The no expression,
Yeah.
like
And
no
like-
expression.
And like maybe the thing that what made me think it was weird is like maybe he did some kind of facial thing that I didn't see, but my brain said that doesn't make sense. Like maybe he didn't blink for 2 minutes, and my brain
Yeah,
said
that's
something's
the
wrong about that guy. Be something odd.
And that,
Yes.
I don't know.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. That even if you're one of these street performers that don't move, you can't. If you're alive, you can't pull it off. Which is the no expression, no blinking, no nothing. So yeah, your mind was going, what? That guy's not alive. But let me ask something, Jimmy. Obviously you've gone through different, as an investigator, did you ever go on a case where you said, you know what, I want to leave. This is too real for me. This is too haunted. Where you felt like,
Never. You know what? I guess you never know until you're in the situation to see if you're a runner or a stayer.
Yeah.
And no, we're matter of fact, one house where I'll condense this. This woman kept saying she saw shadow figures in her house, and it was also a house where it was hiding objects in her house, and she find them all around the house, stacked up behind couches, behind in the closet. She found all these weird items stacked up all the time. One time, her little 3 or 4 year old kid had every toy in his whole room and toy box stacked on top of him while he was sleeping in bed. And it wasn't like 5; it was like a tower of toys on top of him,
okay,
which is pretty impossible for him to do. But anyways, he said he used to say the little boy that was kind of mean to him used to visit him in his bedroom and scratch him and beat him up. Anyway, so that's the house. So the woman kept saying she sees the shadow figure a lot. And while she's talking to us, she's screaming, crying, but she's pointing at it here and there. And she says, don't you see it? We're like, no. And imagine to her, if she's telling the truth, how frustrating it is that she sees it right in front of her and we can't see it. So after a while, we said, maybe she's just ill. So she goes, we're ready to pack it up. We're ready to pack up. And she goes, it just went into the bedroom. So we even flicked the hall light on so we have some kind of light, looked into the bedroom, and you could see a shadow person, like a foot out of the wall, 6 foot slender man. And he was just standing there. And even, like you said, we were talking about before, how do you know something's not just, this can't be real. This can't, it doesn't make sense. So we're even moving the door, moving stuff in the room to try to play with the shadows to see what's creating it. And we couldn't interact with the shadow at all. It was just by itself, And so because we didn't believe her, I left all the equipment in the other room where we were interviewing her in. So it was me and my friend Rick. We're just staring at the thing. And I was like, Rick, do I go back and get a camera so I could capture this? Because when I turn around, it might just disappear. I'll never see something like this again.
Right.
Or just stand here and watch it. And hopefully people believe us, And he goes, well, let's just go up and try to touch it. So it's like,
I swear,
so
that sounds like something from the opening scenes of Ghostbuster. Well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
so I say
Well,
it was
we're like
probably.
little kids, that's what we do. I'll poke it.
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking it looks like 7 or 8 feet away, something like that. So we took like one step and a half, and the thing turned to its right, and it was in the corner of the room. So it took a step to its right, and then kind of went into the wall. And then I even ran around to the other side of the wall, like I was outside in the hallway to see if he came out the other way, but it didn't. So we don't know. I don't know what that is.
Wow.
It could be, you could put names on it, but who really knows what something like that is?
And she was seeing it all over the place, or was it only in that one room?
All over the house.
And what happened?
Well, like I was saying, when I was a kid, anything that was odd is a ghost. Like, if an orange falls off the table, a ghost. Because there's no other explanation. If a book flies, even if a book flew across the room 20 feet, it's a ghost. It's a dead person. Like, why does it have to be a dead person all the time that does this stuff?
Oh.
So we just didn't know how to explain whatever that was. And that house there was also a house where too much stuff was happening, and they were paying month to month.
Okay.
So they said, well, we're leaving at the end of the month. So if you guys want to do any kind of experimentation, sometimes you're not going to do something in somebody's house that's irresponsible.
Right.
But she kind of said, we're leaving soon. So if you guys want to experiment with any stuff or, try stuff in here, you're welcome to. So she kind of gave us run of the place for the last week. And kind of had a weird thing happen, I guess.
Which is?
The sneakers, Bill.
Yeah. This is and this is all in the book in detail. It's a great case.
Oh, this bonus chapter's in there?
Yeah, there are bonus treats in there. Yeah, bonus chapters as well as.
So this is okay. The woman, I think, was 21. She was very young, and she had I think her son was 3 or so, and she'd bake a lot. She'd bake muffins and cookies, and she put them on top of the refrigerator way in the back, so there's no way the kid could climb up there and get them, unless he had a ladder or something. So she'd come home, they go shopping or go out or whatever. When she went to get the cookies, they were just gone, and she knows the kid can't get to them, and she's like, maybe a neighbor's stealing them or something going in. So then, like days later, they'd find the cookies stacked up in one of the closets in the kitchen. Like nobody ate them, or in another room. Then the muffins. One day they had friends over, and the little boy came into the room, like they could tell he was terrified. Like, what's wrong? And he didn't even speak. He just brought them over to the living room and pointed in the back of the couch, like shaking, because it's really odd to see a whole stack of muffins in the back of your couch for no reason whatsoever. It's kind of odd looking. So that kind of stuff was happening. So they were a young couple. Like I said, she was only 21 or so, and so her mother would come stay with her a lot, just at night. She got scared, and her boyfriend was working.
Okay.
So the boy had these little blinking sneakers that light up when you walk.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the mother said she was walking down the hallway and she could see the sneakers walking by themselves in the boy's room.
Okay.
And then just when she looked at them, they just stopped. Like, you caught me. So then she goes, and they'd also blink at her. She said they used to mock her. I said, what do you mean by mocking? Hello? And so I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, I look down the hall at them, and then they start blinking at me, and they only do it when I look at them.
Well, maybe it's kind of low.
Yeah, I said, I was thinking the
battery.
battery.
Saying, you got any cookies?
It says the battery's low, or the vibration, or I was trying to explain it to her so she wasn't so scared.
Well, it's almost, I want to say, you saw that shadow, but then at the same time, some of this thing sounds almost like mischievous, like a kid. Like
yeah.
But at the same time, you're saying if this place, maybe a lot of people live there, because if they were like on a month to month, I wonder if it had a long history of renters.
Maybe.
I mean, who knows what the history
Actually,
was.
they're gonna feature this house on one of these Halloween episodes.
Oh, really?
Of I can't remember what show it was back then, but they wanted to do a whole overnight investigation Halloween night, and the landlord wanted $100,000. And you know these people don't have that kind of budget,
Right.
but he wanted $100,000. He says my house isn't gonna be worth anything after this, and he doesn't understand. No, they go up.
Exactly.
You know, when places are haunted. So,
We'll find a tenant that's going to take the place for far more just because it's haunted. Yeah.
yeah. So she left the sneakers. They moved everything out of the house except the sneakers. And I said, "How come you're not taking the sneakers?" She told me the whole story. So I set them up on a shelf, and with a video camera on them. It's the only thing I could do. I didn't have any props or anything really. So I said, let's just sit them up there and let's see if they blink. And I had the camera on them, and they're not doing anything. So then I said, wait. I said, all this stuff seems to happen when nobody's home, like when they go away.
Right.
The muffins, the cookies, the other stuff too. But so I said, let's go downstairs and then come back up. So we went downstairs. Okay, we're going now.
Hope you can't see that we're just fooling.
Yeah. So then when we come back up the stairs, we look at them. They're in the same spot. And we just think it didn't do anything. But then when we rewound the tape, as soon as we walked down the stairs, they're just blinking the whole time, back and forth, like they're talking to each other, you know?
What?
Then they moved out at the end of the month. But the coolest story ever is a mutual friend, a friend of mine has a friend that lives on the floor above them.
Okay.
And she said there's a new guy that lives in that apartment, and he keeps his cigarettes in the refrigerator. I guess supposed to keep them fresh or something.
Okay.
And she goes, he keeps coming home, and the cigarettes are missing.
Oh.
So I want to go so bad and tell him to check in the closets and back of the couch.
Yeah, it's behind the couch.
But
that is, because I was about to say, you know, I was going to say, does it follow her? Is she really the agent behind this? I'm not saying intentionally, but was it her? But no, apparently it's
like
something
house.
there.
Yeah, it looks like it's the area. Yeah.
Yeah, she really didn't have anything before either. Yeah, and
well, at least nobody that wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I think some things happen depending on who's there. Some people, for some reason, just stir things up.
Oh,
and then other times, some people, it's really minimal where they ignore it. And then there's people that things happen to, they just never decide to tell anybody anything. And they just quickly move away. It's like, I'm gone. See ya.
Right.
Nobody's ever the wiser as to, hey. But yeah, I think that I would probably do the same thing. I know that, and I guess it's different. If you can, I would say, but some people, you know, I know depending if you own the house, and
right.
I know some people, like, they'll say they'll be living years in a certain house and nothing ever happens, and then all of a sudden things start happening, and then usually, like you said, there's some type of trigger event or something going on. That's the point of origin. Either they were at a place they shouldn't have been or got involved doing something, and then it takes off from there.
Right.
Or, and I don't know if you've where you have an attachment to an object that they bring into the house. You know, I think that can happen as well. That's why I tell somebody, say, you know what, with all these things with garage sales and curbside pickups, you got to be careful what you bring home.
I got a great guest for you.
Who?
Oh no, I have a great guest for you. A guy that I talked to. He works at the haunted. It's like a haunted antique museum in England. It's the first one of its kind.
Okay.
It's open to the public.
Okay.
And he purposely collects haunted objects, and he lives by himself. and he documents
Obviously. No.
Yeah. No, it's kind of a sad story. I was waiting for I just wanted to hear his cool stories, because all the items had a cool story behind them, and I like the backstory, why something is considered haunted, and I just wanted to hear those. But his parents both died when he was a teenager, one even younger, I think, and so he's only 18, living by himself.
Wow.
And he said, I just wanted somebody to talk to, and I was trying to communicate with my parents with a Ouija board, and he says they kind of keep me company and stuff. So it's a little creepy, but it's some good stories anyway.
No, I'm sure.
The thing is, of course, you never know who you're communicating with.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Who picks who's like? It's like, okay, you feel lonely. Don't worry. I'll pretend I'm mommy and daddy.
I'm not going to argue with him until
No, of course not.
he's talking on the ceiling backwards Latin or something. Then everything's fine. So,
Yeah. If that happens, then we get the video camera.
yeah.
You know what? I don't know, but from what I've seen, a lot of those people that do keep things. Does he live there, or is it housed there separate from where he lives at?
Oh, he works at the antique place, and he also collects objects himself.
See, that's.
And as a,
Let me tell you something. When you're saying that, even that close proximity, I don't know. I have a feeling that usually is not really good either.
a little small environment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, all right. No,
And
I
also,
don't know.
again,
That can get dark real
He's
easy.
18, and I think of the things you did when you're 18, and you weren't worried about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like,
So,
I hate to say it, but I think that in a way he's kind of vulnerable at a physical level.
Yeah.
hopefully he skates by, but we never know.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. Some people, I hate to say it, but some people, maybe it's because of what you said, that he lost his parents. They want so desperately to have some proof of the afterlife that they get more than what they bargained for. And then later on, it's a big giant nightmare.
Said.
Because, there's no escaping it. But anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much for the time you've spent. I have absolutely loved, and I know you all have such great stories, even the ones that don't make it to the books, because those are the ones that I like.
Good time.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, we did.
So let me, Bill, what is your website? If you could give it out for my podcast.
Yeah, we have
listeners.
launch packages with signed books and extra treats and collectibles that'll last forever. That's at halloftheparanormal.com. That's HALL of theparanormal.com. That's where we have our Phantom Messages autographed by Jimmy and I, made out personally to you. And the mortgage companies would appreciate if you would order one. So.
And in bookstores, it's all over the place.
Yeah,
Amazon.
books are all over the place. Yeah, Barnes and Noble.
Amazon.
But they won't be signed personally, Bill.
Right. And Jimmy, do you have any website in particular besides that one that you wanted to share?
No,
That's
we're
the
having
one.
everybody check that one out. Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you. I'm going to be looking it up. And do you have are you working on any book that will be out in the future?
Heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, actually.
It's going to be the creepiest one ever.
Well, let me ask you now, because we're getting close. What are you guys doing for Halloween?
Oh, what are we doing, Jimmy?
We got a couple.
We actually got a book more stuff for October.
We have a couple of library lectures around Halloween,
Okay.
and I have a evening with Annabelle event. And Halloween, hopefully go trick or treat with the kids. That's what Halloween's for.
Yeah. I know. That's why I was asking. I thought you might. It's what is it? It's and I say this. I know that now because Halloween, of course, scary and with everything with the paranormal shows. But I tell everybody, God, I remember when Halloween was so great for kids, and even as a teenager, I mean, I loved it. I guess what I'm trying to say, it wasn't so much about staying safe as it is now. Like, everybody's so scared that they have events and kids don't go out trick-or-treating and dressing up and...
Trunk or treat.
It was like, you just had a good time.
And what's really weird is no one has ever had a razor blade in an apple.
I know.
It's an urban legend. It's never happened.
Yes, and it's like, but let me tell you, it's a pretty potent one, because that's like...
Nobody wants them. So, but the point is, it's really weird because that is such, I mean, I used to think that, why else would they say check the candy if it wasn't a rampant thing that happened? They actually have no cases of tainted candy except where it was somebody trying to, like a husband trying to kill a wife. The wife trying to kill the husband. But there's a few cases with tainted candy that had to do with that, but now maybe that's changed since I looked it up. But I was surprised to see that was an urban legend and never really happened. Right. I think it was a way for us parents to take the good candy. That's what it was.
But still, it's like I don't know. I just they've tried to make nothing wong with being safe, but the Halloween they've taken the fun out of it. It's.
Well, it is scary because it's scarier now because urban legend or not, we know all the stuff that's happened and crap that's happened, and
Yeah.
So
But you would see more kids out on the streets, all ages, and it was a.
it gets
Now they
crowded.
have like I
My
mean what I mean
neighbor,
is going house to house versus now they have these events like, oh, take your kids here where it's
right?
safe. It's like, oh,
And they're like, yeah, but we didn't get a big bag of candy.
I know. It's so different. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. And I wish you the best of
Thank
luck
you.
on this existing project and new projects. And I hope you'll come back in the future and we can talk about some of more of your great stories. They're fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night. Oh, guys. Wow. Weren't they great? And we only touched on a little bit. This is their last book that just came out, September now of 2018, Phantom Messages. And you know what? They're absolutely true. I mean, of course, since the inception, turn of the century of, not this century, but obviously the last one, where they were coming up with the phone and all that. Even since then, you always had these ghost stories about people getting phantom calls, where the phone would ring and it would, because of course this was these early ones. This was way before, you couldn't trace back the call, but you would have the voice of somebody that was deceased or that last message. So this has been around for a long time, what they were talking about as far as that age of where people were able to communicate through the air, for lack of a better word, because that's really the understanding. And sometimes people, number one, knew right away they were getting a call from somebody that was dead, or what we talked about, where they actually would have a conversation with somebody that they thought was alive. That's how real it was. It was a conversation, and then later on they come to find out that this person had recently passed away. And in some cases it was somebody they knew, and in some cases, which I think it would be from somebody that they hadn't heard from in a while. And they were really surprised that they would be getting this call from this person. And they would have, the usual conversation people have that haven't talked to each other. Oh, how are you doing? And this person's like basically saying yes, yes, and then later on they find out that at that time that they were having that conversation, this person had died. So I guess the point is, contrary to what a lot of people believe, that kind of electronic phenomena as far as phantom messages has been around for quite a while, at least 100 years. Okay, and it's probably going to continue, I think. I know if you think about it, yeah, there's ways that people can fake things, but at the same time, there's circumstances that it's like, this is not fake, especially when people get some type of a communication, like what they were saying, let's say email, let's not say the phone call, email or something from somebody at a time that they had passed away. And I know sometimes there's programs that can stagger, or that, you can date, let's say, an email to go out at a future date. But sometimes there's things that happen that rules that out totally. And then we come on to something that I wish we could have talked about a little bit more. But I think they kind of both were on the same page with this, that even then, you have to be really careful. Because in a lot of instances, a lot of the stories, even these really old ones, whether they're, when I say modern or back, 70 or 80 years ago when, more and more people were getting phones installed in their houses, and there was party lines. That's another thing that way back then, sometimes you had to be careful with party lines where you have more than one person that could pick up the phone. But where, yeah, you would get that call from that person who had just died. And maybe that happened once, and then that was it. That was like, wow, I didn't realize. Or, basically it was that departed person trying to tell you, I'm okay, I'm on my way, or the equivalent of a crisis apparition, or, I've died, and you're seeing this person in spirit form because maybe they're in another part of the world. And that's it. You get maybe 1, 2, and then that person's gone. They've moved on to where. The thing is, something similar to what they were describing about that cable box, which that's way out there. But I remember when it, if you had cable, that's how you got your cable. You had a cable box. No Wi-Fi connection, none of that. Where you have maybe a dark entity, that this is how they gain a foothold. And if you listen to the story, what he's saying, all of a sudden they have a 14-year-old in the house, which just so happens that they had a family member who committed suicide, and that 14-year-old, though, when visiting Florida, had attended, which, by the way, that sometimes that's all it is. That's all that's necessary. What sounded like either satanic rites or some type of really dark ritual, because whenever you're talking bloodletting or killing an animal sacrifice, that's not good. But anyway, was that the point of entry? That happens a lot, more than people think. That it decided to use a cable box, that one's like way out there. But think about it. And I've heard this very often, that a lot of times these things introduce themselves very innocuously. Like, how unthreatening could it be, a cable box? That basically right away they caught on. It's like, 1 through 26 for each letter of the alphabet, and then gives out numbers, and then you just spell out, which is more or less like an electronic Ouija board. And then later on it jumped into shadow figures, and a 14-year-old saying that he's getting rammed by a muscle-bound, pointed-eared something. Okay, we're talking here non-human. Now, this thing went from... and before that, which I hear that a lot, that when people do the Ouija board, they get a hold of a certain person who identifies themselves as so-and-so and gives this really elaborate story about who they are. And same thing, murder. But there's so many details that people think this is a real entity. This is a real person. They're trying to have their story told because they got killed and nobody's none the wiser. And it turns out it's all a hoax. And then you say, well, why would an entity do this? If, let's say, in this case where it's all totally false once they checked it out, what other reason could there be except they were trying to gain entry to increase that dialogue? That acceptance. And this is, and I've talked about in other shows, and almost like the invite. Okay? It's almost like that knock on the door. And of course, you open it, and I want to say it's almost like an extended invite, where maybe at the beginning you're not sure, but then the more you interact with it, and we're going to use the word it because it sounded like it was an it, it's almost like you cement that invitation. And once that door is open, then it's like, okay, I don't have to use a cable box anymore. Okay, now I'm in here and I'm going to do what I want. And I'm not surprised either that there was an adolescent in the house, and there was probably maybe other dynamics, but yeah, I've heard of a variation of that as being a point of entry a lot of times for I want to say dark. And again, the difference being that when it's usually, let's say, a deceased family member saying a last goodbye, or a friend, they don't stick around. They don't keep doing that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No matter how innocent or unthreatening the communications initially are, or who they portray themselves to be. Let's say once you figure out it's not grandma or uncle or cousin or your friend. Okay, there's always, I hate to say it, more oft times than not, it's a sinister intent behind it. And then that's it. Good luck on closing and putting that genie back in the bottle. Very difficult not to. And of course, the family disappeared. Okay, after it's like, what happened? That, I think, makes you wonder. We decided to leave from one day to the next. Was it that blessing that he did that drove them out? Was there something that maybe was trying to get attached, or was attached to that adolescent that all of a sudden living in that house that had been blessed made it unlivable anymore? And it was like, hey, let's go. Was there some type of oppression on all the family members that from one day to the next they decided, we're out of here. This place is sanctified. We're gone. No, I mean, we could guess all night about that one. But anyway, guys, I hope you liked the show. I thought it was great. I'm hoping to bring back Jimmy and William or Bill because I'm sure they've got plenty of stories and more books, and they have more than one book. I'm sure you've seen there some of the different books. Plus, anyway, I'm going to have the links to their website on the credits of the show, so please make sure to check them out. And that book absolutely sounds fascinating, especially for Halloween reading, because Halloween is still one of my favorite holidays. I just have a lot of good memories attached to it. Despite what people think that there's nothing dark or anything, it's just that I want to say that for me, Halloween was a time when it was just a fun time. I have good memories, and it was even at school. I would remember when the teachers would decorate, and you would get your costume together. And I want to say that costumes were important, but it wasn't when they had those plastic masks with a rubber band in the back. It was a very it was a good time. It was a good time, and of course, it was about the candy and all those things, and going through your neighborhoods, and that's why I don't know. I think it's become. I want to say that it's become more. People have made it like a sinister thing, like he said about that thing with a razor blade and the apple, and a lot of fear around it. And it's like, unless you're happening to go trick or treating in a really neighborhood that you shouldn't, I think we need to do that more often, like get out of the house and have our kids like go door to door if you're a teenager and you can go alone, and just go and say hello and meet people maybe on 3 blocks over you've never met. By the way, I'm talking about besides, a lot of people Halloween parties, which is what a lot of people do, which you can have a lot of good times there as well. But anyway, guys, have probably I don't think you're going to be hearing the show by the time Halloween rolls around. But anyway, happy Halloween for those of you who do hear the show before then. Happy Halloween, and please subscribe to the channel. That way you get notified when I release a new show, whether it's on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms. It's a Stitcher, iHeartRadio, iTunes, podcasts, CastBox. I'm on all of those. Spreaker, and and again, if you before I forget, I've had a lot of people that, even though I've asked my true believers to send me their stories, I've had some of them that say, I just have a question. I really don't have a story, but could you address it? And sometimes what I do is I look up, some type of question that I get something like it from a lot of different people that basically they're asking the same thing. And so anyway, guys, one of the questions that has come up quite a lot, more or less a version of it, is some people have asked, when I used to do my hypnotherapy, especially when people used to come for, let's say, past life regression, and there was some question as in, did it help people? Was like, did I believe in past life regressions? Did I believe in reincarnation, which is the idea behind? And you know what? The human mind is incredible as to the things it could come up with, especially out of your subconscious mind. And like I said, a lot of times I would have people come and do past life regressions, and I want to say that 90% of them usually regress to something that they never expected to be regressed to. In other words, people sometimes have these ideas about certain cities, time periods, whatever, that they were like, I know I must have lived back then. So they had these expectations set up. And of course, as a hypnotist, you don't word it to tell them to go back to a certain time period. The thing is for them to just see what's most appropriate for them. And like I said, 90% of the times what people would see as far as when they were regressed had nothing whatsoever to do with what they expected to see. And one of the things that I would tell them is that doesn't mean that you did not have a lifetime during that particular time. But the question usually that we ask as far as the subconscious mind and is what's the best, most appropriate thing for them to see at that time. Okay? And sometimes what they saw would be the most appropriate thing. And I did have, I would say, more than 50% of people who, once we discussed, because like I said, you remember everything, that they would be like totally like flabbergasted that they had actually had this experience and how real it was, and when they saw themselves and they couldn't understand, wow, I never hadn't felt any connection with this. A lot of them would follow up because I would record the hypnosis session, and they would keep. In other words, they could review the MP3 even though they were aware of it. That, sometimes when you go back and you listen to it, and I had some of them later on understand why they had that experience when they had. In other words, why they saw that life at that time, what the message was for. Because at the beginning, they were just taking it at face value, as in, oh, why am I seeing myself as a soldier that got killed, for example, especially let's say if you're a woman, whatever. That they just couldn't understand. Like, I never understood. I don't understand why. Then later on, sometimes something would come around that would make them understand why they saw that. Okay, so as far as in seeing the benefits of it, yes, I did see the benefits of it. Like I said, whether it's real or whether it's not, or whether it's your subconscious mind pulling, and a lot of people would say, I don't have no familiarity at all with this at all. Okay, and they, some of the descriptions that they had of what they saw and smelled, and even when they saw themselves looking totally unlike what they perceive themselves as, even another sex. And then one of the questions that I have that comes in that, which is that if you have a spiritual attachment, okay, every once in a while, if it's deeply embedded, you are during that past life regression, you're actually experiencing. Wow, this is. I'm trying to give the condensed answer on this. Basically, what you're experiencing is the life, or you're seeing, not experience. Well, when I say experiencing, it's because under the hypnotic state, you kind of relive it. It's more than just the life of that attachment that you have. Okay. And I'm going to do a complete show about that, where sometimes that's, as a matter of fact, a lot of people sometimes they become aware of the attachment, especially if it's not malevolent, when they have a past life, what they think is a past life regression, and it turns out what they are actually seeing is the lifetime of that attachment that they have. And then they realize that wasn't me, this is so-and-so, and so-and-so is with me. So yeah, like I said, I'm just giving a very condensed answer to that question. But yes, that I believe in it. Yes, I do believe in it, and I have seen positive results for people. That something, just if it's a fear or phobia, sometimes is explained, and sometimes over little by little things become clearer. And like I said, I've had people contact me back, sometimes even weeks later, and tell me, I understand now why I saw that. I get it now. And they would tell me a story as to why, what they saw, what the reason was. And sometimes it's even something that would be happening to them very shortly thereafter, having that regression session, which then we get into, like, that time is not linear the way we see it. In other words, that their subconscious at some point was aware where the significance of viewing that lifetime, that significance was going to be significant maybe in a few days or a few weeks. Okay. So yes, for all of you. And then, like I said, I'm going to do a show about attachments. past life regressions and differentiating the two, and the fact that sometimes you even carry spiritual attachments with you even from past lives. Yes, and that sometimes souls are locked, even, in other words, between lifetimes, which is, again, not a good thing. But sometimes these are even vows and contracts that souls make, and somehow they don't know how to break them. For example, sometimes people making vows, I promise I'll come back for you, or I'll always be with you, or I'll never leave you. Sometimes those vows are really heartfelt. Sometimes that they're taken beyond that vow should only, if they're meant to keep it, would be within that physical lifetime. And again, but anyway, guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, and catch me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And again, thank you so much for sharing this time with me. And if you have any questions, again, if you don't want to submit a True Believer story, you can send me a question at marlene@miamighostchronicles.com, and I will try to answer it at the end of each show. And believe me, I've got a lot of interesting questions that I can go over, but if not, it'll run into a really long show. But like I said, eventually I will make a show just about something that needs a lot more explanation, that I've gotten a lot of requests for. Okay, so take care. You're all absolutely wonderful.